Hey everyone, in this video we're not going to be talking about this guy that you see in front of you. We're actually going to be talking about this guy right behind it. You guys may recognize this rifle from the review that I did. This is my Bergara B-14 Ridge in 6.5 Creedmoor that I've had for quite a while, paid my own money for it, had a really great experience with it, excuse me. However, I was working with a company that does marketing for various firearms manufacturers, and they are now a representative, or have been for several years now, of Bergara, and they asked me, hey, would you be interested in reviewing one of the 22 trainers? And I thought, absolutely yes, because as much as I enjoy shooting that 6.5 Creedmoor and reaching out to long distance with it, even when you're loading your own, the price starts adding up really quickly, and there's, I think, a lot of value with having something in 22 that you can then also replicate your actual long-range setup or your PRS setup and still be able to get some really good training value out of it. So this is the B-14R from Bergara, and the R being the rimfire version. So again, this one is in 22 long rifle. And aesthetically, functionally, and in almost every way, it is identical in function and form to the standard Bergara B-14 rifles, including this like chassis version here you see. So again, with the exception of the silencer and the optic, this is a totally factory, and the bipod, factory configuration rifle. And out of the box, it gives you that look, feel, and function while allowing you to also practice for a significantly lower cost. So let's go over the features real quick, and I'll explain how I've got this thing set up, and then we'll also talk about whether or not it's worthwhile to have a 22 trainer in your inventory. So starting up front, we've got one of the Griffin Armament 22 cans. This specifically is the Checkmate HD. I've already done a review on this one. Then I've just got one of its QD muzzle devices here on the end. It is threaded standard 1/2 by 28, so pretty simple and straightforward there if you wanted to run any sort of muzzle device, specifically a silencer in my case, or just as the thread protector if you don't want to run any of that. We have an extremely heavy profile barrel here, especially when we're talking 22. However, that's also going to keep the weight up and make it feel like a more full caliber rifle. Moving back, we have the really excellent Bergara stocks. Again, this is the same stock you would see on any caliber rifle, especially in the HMR line. You've got QD sockets up here up front, so if you wanted to run a sling. I always like these side-mounted sling options when we're talking about bolt guns, so that you can have it resting flat against your back without having to worry about bolts sticking into you on one side or scope sticking into you, bipod sticking to you if you had it on the top or bottom slung against your back. So really nice to have those built in, and then we've also got the corresponding sling loops or sling sockets in the back. You do have the sling stud underneath the stock, so that if you wanted to run a bipod, so like for example here with this, I've got a Harris bipod down here underneath. You do have two different sling studs, so I actually have this running a little further back because I just kind of threw it on there off of my 6.5 Creedmoor here, but you could run it forward and then still have a sling loop if you wanted to run a sling loop off the side or off the bottom for whatever reason. I will also show here, we do have a detachable box magazine. The standard mags here are 10-round mags. I have a couple of them, but it is worth mentioning I have not actually tried this with any of the other like aftermarket 22 precision mags out there, just the Bergara mags. We'll talk about how well those worked a little bit later on, but we do have the standard lever magazine release here. Again, all the controls are going to be extremely familiar if you have a normal Bergara or really any Remington 700 pattern bolt action rifle. With that, we do have the enlarged knob straight out of the gate, as well as the standard safety here on the side. So again, if you're familiar with that Remington 700 manual of arms, you're good to go. The optic rail up here on top is compatible with any of the standard short action Remington 700 scope bases. So again, we have full cross compatibility there. Then I've got a Blackhound Optics scope on top. This is one of their 3 to 18 mil scopes. I'll talk a little bit more about this thing later. I have some opinions about that, but for the purposes of what I've been doing with this, it's been working fine enough for that. And then as you can see back here, we've got kind of that semi-pistol grip chassis with the adjustable cheek riser, and you can also see I've added the spacers to make this thing about as full length as I can get it, just to fit it to myself. Again, you do have a sling stud back here if you wanted to run your sling that way, and then you've also got this really nice cutout for any sort of rest that you might want to have if you prefer to have your support hand coming back locked in there. I will typically just run a rear bag, and that has worked well for me. So that's kind of a really quick overview. It is worth mentioning that, again, this is effectively a full weight rifle. This thing, I'll put the exact weight on screen, and the weight is going to be without the scope or anything else on it. And it is a pretty heavy rifle. In fact, it is heavier than my 6.5 Creedmoor in that, it's actually heavier than the 6.5 Creedmoor in that KRG Bravo stock with the scope and silencer and everything. This thing is still heavier with the way I have it configured. And the benefit of that is, again, if you're talking about PRS shooting or any sort of like precision competition shooting, one of the heavy components of that is going to be positional shooting and being able to manipulate your rifle into many awkward positions and be able to do so competently and you know, comfortably enough that you can actually get the shots done that you need to get done. And by being able to test it with a full weight trainer, or even run rimfire competitions with a full weight trainer, it really is helping you set yourself up for success when you start getting into like the more full rifle caliber options that you might want to run instead when you're talking about longer distance. Now, it is worth mentioning, I have actually run this rifle through a Precision 22 match here locally. I've only done it the one time, and the one time I did it, I took this rifle and I actually took first place in that match, for what that's worth. Now, there's obviously a lot of things to be taken into account there. Obviously, I'm a pretty decent shooter. Now, none of the targets were further than, I want to say it was like 180 yards and in, but some very small, precise targets. But the rifle was definitely not the limiting factor in that case. So I was very, very happy with how this thing performed, and I had a really good time out there. And really, one of the other main benefits, in my opinion, when it comes to a 22 trainer is just the amount of training value you can do within those short distances, whether we're talking about making your adjustments for distance or even your holds for wind. So for example, I've got my little cheat sheet in the rear cap here. So again, assuming we were shooting at about 175 yards, with this scope, with the ammo I was shooting, which I think that match I did all CCI standard stuff, it says a 6.1 mil hold. So I'm having to dial quite a bit to be able to engage targets, even out to some relatively short distances. What that also means is, so like, and for what it's worth, a 6.1 mil hold with my Bergara is going to be somewhere around like 750 yards. So I can get a lot of experience dialing that scope for distance. And then again, because we're talking about a projectile that has a much lower BC and is traveling much slower, I'm also having to be a lot more considerate of wind. So you are going to be able to build those fundamental skills of PRS shooting, dialing your scope, holding for wind, etc., without having to find places where you can shoot out to long distances. Again, 200 yards and in is excellent training with something like this. Now, that's not to say that that's the extreme range of this, because I actually have taken this out to do extreme long range shooting, and the furthest I've been able to make contact, although it's really, really hard, like no one else can be shooting and the wind has to be just right to be able to hit it on steel, was about 400 meters, so about 440 yards. And to me, that is excellent, because prior to this rifle, I was pretty pleased with myself if I could make hits on a 22 out to 200 yards. Honestly, even at 100 yards, sometimes it was a little dicey depending on ammo and whatever else. This thing made 200 yards like stupid simple, and I even have a video that I'll roll in of me shooting this thing at 200 yards for the first time on a steel target, and I was having a grand old time. So let's take a look at that. We've got a camera pointed down range at those steel targets at 200 yards. We're going to be holding about 1 mil left. We've got 7.7 mils dialed into the scope. I'll probably be waiting for some of these gusts to die down, starting on the leftmost swinger. First time loading it to 10 rounds. All right, so let's move over to that center swinger. Ooh, just off the right edge. Slight gust, we'll wait for it to die down. Probably hit the stand? Definitely hit steel. Go back to that left one. Well, I'll just keep it on that one. How about that? Smacked it right in the middle. Oh, just beneath it. Man, just watching these bullets fall out of the sky is incredible. Wait for this gust. Or you know what, let's just hold more. Oh, too much. Well, I can tell you I've never had a rifle that could do that in 22. That target was 1 mil wide, the left one that we were hitting most. Thing's freaking insane. So as you can see, this thing makes it stupid simple, and at about 10 cents per trigger pull versus about $2 per trigger pull with something like that 6.5 Creedmoor, and even more if you're doing stuff like 300 PRC or any of those other competition calibers. So I think it is an immense amount of training value and reps that you can get with this. And again, even if all you ever want to do is that Precision 22 stuff, because there are more and more of those Precision 22 matches out there, this is a really excellent option. Now, if you're not looking for that full weight, if you're going to try to go full gamer in that rimfire division, obviously there are much different options available. I believe they do have a carbon fiber version of this one, which would drop that weight significantly, because this is a really thick barrel with a really skinny hole drilled down the middle of it, so you have a ton of weight here. But again, if you're looking for something that is going to offer you those same benefits and experiences as your full-size caliber, this is a really compelling option. Now, I did have some issues that I think are worth mentioning, and well, I had a issue specifically, and that was with, it's hard for me to fully identify it, whether it was magazine or what, but I was having issues when I first got this, where I would go to chamber around and it would get stuck trying to go into the chamber and basically gouge out part of the bullet, and I'd have to take the mag out, open the bolt, sometimes have to dig the cartridge out. I tried buying a new magazine and it was still happening, but then after about, I don't know, 200, 250 rounds, maybe 300 rounds, that issue has gone away. And as long as I, run the bolt authoritatively, I have not had that issue crop up again. It was a really frustrating issue when it was happening, because it was happening very consistently, especially with a more full magazine. But again, that issue has gone away. I reached out to Bergara. They had a hard time figuring it out and basically told me, keep running rounds through it. If you continue to have issues, we'll go from there. But again, it did seem to work itself out, and it happened maybe 10 to 20% of the time, sometimes more, sometimes less, and it really didn't seem to matter which ammo I used. Again, it did happen, and I think it's worth mentioning on here. While we talk about ammo, the majority of the ammo that I've shot through this thing has been the CCI standard velocity stuff. It is really cost effective and has performed really well. I'll be rolling in some groups right now. The stuff that has shot the best out of it is the black box Ely match stuff. It is significantly more expensive, and while I do get better performance out of it, to me, it wasn't enough better to justify the added cost and the more limited availability of that ammo. So I zeroed this thing for the CCI standard, and that's just what I've been shooting ever since then. Again, that's what I was shooting out to 400 meters, and it was able to do it very consistently. Really, the only limiting factor was the scope, because I ran out of adjustment and was having to basically guesstimate above the target and holding into free space, which is not ideal. So since I mentioned that, let me go ahead and dig in a little bit more into this scope. So I'm not crazy about this scope, I got to be honest with you guys. It's a 34 millimeter scope. It's in mils, and the reason I went with this scope is, again, the same company that was providing me with the rifle to review is representing Black Hound, and so they wanted me to review one of their scopes alongside it, and been just really underwhelmed by it. I don't think I'm able to, and it's also worth mentioning, this scope base is, I believe it's a 20 MOA base, so I am trying to get a little bit more out of it. But the range of adjustment up and down, especially for a 34 millimeter scope, was kind of underwhelming. I believe the MSRP on these things is like $800 or $900, and they try to justify it by saying it comes with rings. It's a turnkey solution straight out of the box. The rings that it comes with are really garbage Chinesium rings with like the little piece of tape to like keep it from slipping on the inside, which is a immediate indicator of low quality. And they just felt cheap, they looked cheap, so I actually swapped them out for some Steiner rings that I got a while back. And the rings have been fine, but again, I run out of adjustment, and then there's also no zero stop. So like right now, I can tell I have not readjusted this back to zero after the last time I shot it. So right now it's sitting at 4 mils. I'm assuming it's only 4 mils, and if I go back to zero, it should be on. But there have been times, again, when I'm shooting at the extreme long distances where I think I get it back to zero, and really I'm one full rotation off, and there's no indicator of that whatsoever. It doesn't even have like the graduation lines going vertically on the turret to indicate how many revolutions you've gone. So really, really underwhelmed by this scope. Again, the reason I picked this one specifically is it had a reticle most similar to the scope I'm running on my 6.5 Creedmoor. But again, overall, really disappointed by it. It's functional, but for the price, there's no way you could possibly justify what they're asking for these, in my personal opinion. But that being said, again, the rifle has been excellent. Again, with the exception of those loading issues, which seem to be unique to me. I tried to look up other people having a similar issue, and I just wasn't able to find it, so I think I just got lucky. But again, the performance of this thing has been incredible. I am definitely the limiting factor when we're talking about shooting groups with this thing. As you probably have seen, I did do a 10-round group at 100 yards with the with one of the ammos. I'll have to, you guys will know because it says on the picture. But it was like 1.3 MOA at 100 yards, which is really, really good for a 22 rifle when you're dealing with wind and everything else. And again, I got plenty of sub-MOA groups at 50 yards, which again, I'm very, very happy with in something like this. So if you guys are looking for either a really high quality 22 trainer that you can go out, learn the fundamentals of dialing scope, holding for wind, doing holdovers in your scope, this is an excellent, excellent option. Again, really, especially with these HMR style chassis, all you got to do is add some glass to the top, throw a bipod on underneath, and you're off to the races. Depending on what type of matches you're doing, you might not even need the bipod. Obviously, having the silencer on there is also just a little added bonus. But again, if you're especially looking to make a facsimile or something very similar to your actual full caliber setup, then, you know, obviously it's a very, very similar option compared to the real deal, so to speak. So if you guys have any experience with these Bergara 22 rifles, definitely throw those down in the comment section down below, good or bad. If you guys have experience with these Black Hound optics, definitely let me know that as well. I'd love to hear your guys' opinion because, again, I was underwhelmed, but maybe I'm unique in that. But again, I'm just super, super happy with the performance of this thing, and this thing is one of the more fun guns to take to long range because the long flight time and just that really soft, subtle ding on the steel when you're shooting out to distance is pretty satisfying with it. So if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, go and throw those in the comment section down below. Try to get back to you as quick as I can. I want to say thanks to my patrons to help make videos like this one possible with the range time and the ammo that I put through this thing. So thanks to them for their support. That's why we post all our content over there early. We also do some exclusive content. We do live streams. We do a bunch of different stuff. So if any of that stuff sounds interesting to you, or you just want to financially support the channel, definitely head through the links down in the description below to find the Patreon. But anyway, with all that being said, as always, I hope you got something out of this video, and I really appreciate you watching. Okay, so that hit right at 1 mil there, so just move that over. No way. No freaking way. And see my impact was just high. Holy shit! Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Oh, that was just off. I think that was it. Yeah. Wow. So 3 for 5 on a 1 mil target at 200 yards. That's like what? About a just over 6-7 inch target. First time ever taking this thing out to that distance, just using my ballistic calculator. It turned out to be about a 1 mil hold left, so I was holding right at the 1 mil line, and then that's remarkable. Huh. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but I hope you do. Nice. So that was nice and easy. So let's go ahead and go straight to 200 also. See if we can't beat Josh to it. Now look at that rear cap and tell me what that number is.
Not that you need me, but...
Okay, so go ahead and set it to 4. And then the little, go 6 more clicks past that. Okay, and aim nice and center. And when you're ready, nice, slow, steady squeeze. Ooh. Okay, did you see where your impact was?
I think a little bit.
Yep.
First big one right down the middle, that's like 200.
So if you were aiming center, see where the impact was, and then in the scope, and then use that impact point as your new point of aim.
Shoot her up. Get an idea, but level, relax that.
Impact. Go and do that again.
Going for the round. 200
yards. Mine's his yards, not meters.
Yep.
Impact. Good. All right. Do you want to keep shooting at 2, or do you want to try 3?
I think it was at the
All right. So
right
what does it say on the cap?
14.6.
Okay. So you're going to rotate all the way till it gets to 0, and that's going to be 10. And then you're going to go another 4 past that. So no, sorry, to the number 4. My bad. So you're at 12, 13, and just keep it at 4 because that's about what it ended up being. And then I would just hold on the left side of the target because that's where I was having to hold to get impact.
Are you still shooting 2?
Hmm?
Are you still shooting 2?
Yeah.
He's on the plate, the round plate.
Oh, I was looking at the silhouette.
Ooh, looks like it was just off the right edge. Impact. Nice shot.
Josh, what ammo?
Impact.
Norma TAC 22.
TAC 22.
Yep. So it's actually made by RWS.
Impact.
Which is
like the delay
higher
between
end.
the 2 distances there.
Go!
Oh, the bags. I'll just put some new canvas on it and bring it back out here and let somebody else shoot. Throw the cardboard in there, I'll get rid of all this crap. Might have had the rifle resting on it and it was up in front of the muzzle. They probably had a muzzle brake and put the muzzle Yeah, with the barrel
Impact.
rest on it. I used a bag one time.
It screws up the residence, doesn't it?
I used a bag one time to rest the pistol,
Impact.
and I had muzzle burns on it.
Oh, geez.
Target malfunction.
Yeah, pistol.
Impact.
Oh, that's comfortable.
Yeah, the first couple times for the 357. That's why I wear gloves all the time, because I don't make the mistake, but I don't
Cylinder,
know.
yeah.
Impact.
That stuff really cooks in the old skin, huh?
Yeah, dude. Okay, I think I got everything. Let me
you,
get out of
Gary.
here. Give you guys to finish your match.
That's the foreign burn powder.
What time am I at?
Yeah.
58.
Okay,
Slow burner.
Oh, man, yeah.
I'm gonna need all that time.
Spraying sparklers out.
Ugh.
Impact. 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 Impact.
Huh.
Misfire.
Oh well.